I'm delighted to introduce our seminar speaker for this evening, Tuan Ngo. And I don't know whether I pronounced that correctly. Yes, a little too. Professor Tuan Ngo is the research program leader of the Building 4.0 CRC, which is a $130 million initiative to transform the building industry in Australia. Professor Ngo leads the International Research Network for Decarbonising the Building Industry Network. He's a board director of Prefab Australia, the peak industry body in prefabrication and off-site construction in Australia. He received Scopus Research Award in 2022 for excellence in the research impacting sustainable future. He's obviously an ATSE fellow, and he's been named as the world's top composite materials researcher in 2023. So very impressive. I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Sandra. It's great pleasure to be here today, and I'm feeling so honored and joining ASI last year. So of course today, this is very a hot topic. I'm going to talk to you about some of the latest development in the field. But before that, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. We have a meeting and seminar today and pay respect to the elders past and present and emerging. Crisis, we know we are facing a huge problem. So how big is the problem? I'm going to cover that, and also to talk about where we are now as a country, how we compare with other countries in terms of the new method, the modern method of construction. I'm going to talk about some of the common risks and biggest challenges we are facing in terms of the policy framework, regulatory framework, finance, technical, and industry capacity. And of course, toward the end, I'm going to talk about how we go from here, what are the solutions, and how we can make it success. So starting with the problem, we are here talking about the housing crisis, and as a nation, we have a target to build 1.2 million homes over the next 5 years. That means 240,000 per year. If you talk about a minute, we need to build one house every 2 minutes. How can we do that? Of course, in Victoria, we have a target. Our government put a target to build 800,000 homes over the next 10 years. Again, it's about six minutes per house. So only last year, this is probably not surprise to you. In the whole Australia, we only built about 165,000 homes. So we are short about almost about 90,000 homes. And in Victoria, we want to build 80,000 per year, but we only completed 56,000 last year. So we have a huge shortage. And if we keep building the same way, we're going to have the problem will get bigger because many people are waiting for public housing. We've got more than 100,000 people experiencing, of course, the significant housing stress around the country. So we are really below the target. We also see the cost of construction already went up compared to pre-COVID, is 40%. So, and the danger is we are going to see more increase in construction costs over the next few years. So we are also seeing a lot of companies go bankrupt. And last year, this is the latest figure that construction, we see the biggest industry in terms of insolvency. So we have increased almost about 3,000 companies went bankrupt last year alone. And compared to other sectors, we are doing really badly. Looking at the housing completion, and there's two lines here. The orange is about approval, but also we look at the blue line, which is about completion. As a nature of the industry, we went through a lot of boom and bust cycles over the last 25 years, 30 years. But if you look at the completion, basically, you can see last 5 years is all in the way down. So even though we had a bit of pickup about the approval, but the delivery the completion is all on the way down. That's really a danger size of the industry. And everyone heard about the huge problem about trade. We have a 90,000 shortage of the trade, and it clearly shows in the availability index of the Housing Industry Association. So we saw a little bit of improvement since 2002, but still we can see it's well below where we need to be. So the situation is not going to get better, and it's going to maybe get worse. So that's the huge issue we are having. So let's look at the whole industry. I want to summarize the 4 key challenges. Everyone know about the cost overrun, the delay. 1 in 3 projects, 1 in 3 major projects, we got the cost overrun and the delays. We have material shortage. And if you look at what we buy in Bunnings, 60% of the thing we buy in Bunnings coming from overseas. And it's going to be more because of the cost of manufacturing here. So any geopolitical conflicts that would actually immediately affect our supply chain and cost. You probably remember the timber cost went up about 50%. It's coming down a little bit now, still also coming down a little bit, but still more expensive compared to pre-COVID. And we also have a lot of quality and performance issues. And the figures here showing 80% of the project got some issues in terms of the defects. And it costs a lot to rework. And the shortage of the trade is a big issue. And I also saw the latest statistics showing 40% of current labor workforce in construction going to retire over the next decade. And we don't have enough people to join the industry. So with all that, fundamentally, it's really very hard. This is a challenge, or we call it a grand challenge, how we can build faster, more affordable, better quality, safer, and more sustainable. And the thing is, we need to do more with less. It's obvious. Our labor force is aging. We have more demand coming, supply. But if you look at all the measures, all the indexes about to measure productivity, is all the way on the way down. You can see last 20 years coming down compared to other sectors. Medical, we look at manufacturing, it went up, I think about 40%, 50%. But construction, the productivity is the fundamental problem we are facing. So we need a different thinking. Of course, we are talking about industry 4.0, but in our industry, many people think we may even not achieve 2.0. And we often joke that people who built the pyramid 4,000 years ago, if they show up in the construction site now, they can easily get job. Because even well paid job these days, because we use the same techniques. Of course, material, of course, but there's a lot of things we haven't changed over so many years. So with different thinking, of course, this is a summary of what we can do better. We can use digital engineering. We can use new material and system. Of course, advanced manufacturing needs to be there. But we have to have a better supply chain to link all that together. So I've been working on model and prefabrication over the last 15 years. But each country use different terms. So in UK, people call it MMC, which is a modern method of construction. In US or Europe, we see IC, which is industrialized construction. In Singapore or Hong Kong, we call it they call it MIC. So different term. In Australia, we started with prefab, but now we call it smart building. And of course, there are a lot of people are starting to use MMC as a term. But it's really just about shifting on-site work to off-site. That's the fundamental thing we are trying to shift. And we look at the next 15 years. So what will it look like in our industry? Of course, a lot of emerging technology. We are going to use a lot more digital and digital twin will be a norm in the next few years. We also see AI. I'm going to give some example of what we have done in AI for design, for manufacturing and operation. There are a lot of development and new advancement in material, which I think is going to change as well. But we're starting to talk about autonomous buildings. I think that's really the new concept. We can think how smart technology can help us to manage buildings a lot better. In terms of research, we actually also following very similar key themes. So we're starting with digital engineering, talking about material, in construction system, and finance and supply chain. So what we have done, we try to quantify what is the potential gains, what are the benefits. So I will show you some example what we have done. Construction time can be a lot faster, up to 60%. We talk about cost. It's not going to be cheaper upfront. I will show example. But over the whole life of the project, we can get better in terms of the life cycle cost. Of course, waste will be reduced, transport and labor will be reduced, and especially greenhouse gas emission. So let's start with design. If you want to be successful in modular and prefab, when we standardize our design, people will start to say every project is different, our nature of the industry. Everyone there is a project base. But if you want to be having a cost effective for volumetric or prefab, we need more volume. We need more basically repetitive design. So with that, we have to make the design more modular, and we can mass customize it. And we use the killer part of product platform. So that's really happening now. You can see a lot of things we have developed for design for manufacturing and assembly. We have design for transportation. AI can be used for automating the compliance and certification. So moving on to materials, which I've been doing a lot of research. So everyone want lighter, fire resistant, more affordable. But I just pick up the embodied carbon because every typical house in Australia, so the carbon footprint, the embodied carbon is about 60 tons per house. So we're going to build 800,000 homes over the next 10 years. If you can somehow reduce each house, let's say from 60 tons to maybe 30 tons, we can reduce a lot of carbon in the whole, just on the embodied carbon aspect, and more on the operational carbon. If we can design more energy efficient and more thermal insulated homes. But also we have to design for circularity, because at the moment, this is really probably not surprise you, but the built environment, we consume 1/3 of the global resource. And a lot of things go to construction, maybe end up in landfill. So 40% go to landfill. But if we can just reuse or recycle some of that, I think we can save a lot of resource, like raw material. And with that, I just want to give an example of one of the project we did over COVID, using waste tire as a part of the concrete to make it more impact resistant. And the application is for making the barriers, road barriers. So we were successful testing it at full scale. Basically, this is the joint project. We work with a company who actually produce these barriers, and we provide the material. We also use a new design to make sure that it can like resist the impact of a vehicle hitting this at 100 kilometers per hour. So the test was successful, and then it was a one-off test, which I was so fortunate that it passed the test. Because if you fail, I think that's it. But at the moment, if you drive past the Northeast Link, and there are a lot of barriers already installed in that project. So it was a good success story.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Why didn't you build the whole thing out of rubber? Why did you make?
Yeah, that's the because rubber itself is not but we have to have a glue to concrete is a metric to put that together.
Right.
So rubber itself is not also not heavy enough because it needs a mass as well.
Right.
So I think that combination of rubber waste and also with concrete actually make a good combination. And you can see the test here is actually show a lot of improvement itself. So let's move on to the system. So in general modular construction, there's a 2D version. You can see a lot of panels like this, or you can see the whole volumetric. It's a 3D version. So I start with this is a CRCP project I did probably almost 10 years ago with CSR, one of the biggest material manufacturer in Australia. And the thing we want to change is really about the whole system for facade. Facade is really the building envelope, which is about 15% of the total cost. So it's expensive, but the thing is one of the weakest link is where we have to design for water tightness, we have to design for air tightness, and also thermal insulation. And in many cases, we have facade fail in a couple of years after installation. So we design, re-engineer the whole system. It's a multi-layers. We can look at structural, thermal, water barriers. So basically to make it as a multifunctional system. And we have to test it. We have to make sure that we got a project to demonstrate, and we will successfully show we can achieve about 30% saving in time for that particular project. And we also use technology like digital twin, and we scan the site to make sure that the panel will install properly. The challenge for modular construction, because the panel was manufactured down to few millimeter precision. And if we don't monitor that, any just small changes, I think it can affect the installation process. So with that, we will successfully so the digital technology can help to improve the productivity. So this is just a short video, but I'll probably skip it, but you can see the installation. I think it's probably better to skip this. So the next one is also quite interesting because that's the first project I work in. This is the project for Little Hero, basically in middle of Melbourne CBD. It's actually 15 years ago. It was also one of my first ARC linkage project working with a partner UV system. And the challenge, also the motivation, is to see how we can build 90% faster, 100% reusable. And of course, with that desire for manufacturing and assembly, we call it prefab modular construction at that time. We started with a very simple model with a container, but we designed the supporting structure with the interlocking columns, so we can design a stereo apartment like this. In a way, it can fit in any complex site. So it's very, very effective for this type of housing, student housing accommodation. And we have to design those connections so it can be installed very quickly on site. And also you can see the whole module is almost about 90% pre-finished before it installed on site. So this is really very challenging site where we have very narrow lane. This is brushable place, and only enough for the truck to drive in. And you can see the installation here. It took a bit of effort at the beginning, but the whole thing was done.
Wow.
9 days. Of course, it's really a really big success. 68 years. So this was really the first modular volumetric in Australia. And after that, the company went on and developed, I think, a couple of other successful projects, including this one very near here in Collingwood. So 57 apartments manufactured in Brooklyn and Fortescue. So again, this is why effective system to be installed on site. I would just give it, but the problem, of course, is really we want to go higher than that. The full volumetric wouldn't work. It's really expensive. It's getting to the point that the company who took over UV system, which is a Hickory, they changed the system. So basically it's not fully volumetric, but you can see the base structure was installed and trained up. And also I had a chance to work with those projects, including a couple of 44-story. There's the tallest modular buildings, which is the Collin House, 60-story, was completed. And you can see the time saving between traditional, might take about 40 months, and the project was completed in about 30 months. So it's about 20% saving in time. So those success are there, but very limited. And the question, why can we make the whole industry to adopt this model? And the answer is about the cost. It's actually cost more to build this way, even we have a lot of saving in time. And I'm going to talk about that, what we face in the industry, because the supply chain, we are really facing with a very fragmented industry. 90% of the industry are a company with less than 5 people. There's several big players like Mervac, like Lendlease, but of course they are really don't see this as the big driver for them. Because, for example, lending is very difficult for modular project. They face a lot of issue to have finance for the project. The supply chain is inefficient at the moment, and there's like a pipeline. Because if we don't have scale, don't have the volume, I think the construction, the manufacturing cost is going to increase. And there's a limited industry capacity. I mentioned about labor cost and skill shortage. So those barriers really limit why the adoption is still very, very limited. When I started the working with the industry group to form the Prefab Australia, we got about 8 companies. So we grow now to about 200 members, but still it's not enough to deliver the demand we are having now. So what are the opportunity for future? I see a lot of opportunity in using AI. That's why we see construction for the future. There will be a lot of different apps for design, for project management, for safety management. And I think you can see there's some really interesting work done, starting with AI, generative AI. We had this is really interesting because we can use the similar to chat GPT. You want to design a 2-bedroom house, I think you can go to different design and select, let's say, 10 different options for you, and we really want to pick the one we buy. And this is going to be, of course, it's still in early stage, but I can see design option like this will be offered to you like a service. It's not a futuristic, it's happening now. And we have done that in several projects. This is the engine to generate very complex facade system using computational design. So we can see from the initial concept to shop drawings. I can show you this is another project we did last year with the CRCV 4.0. And in this project, we actually automate the whole process of design from conceptual to shop drawing in much, I think probably it's fast like this. But you can see the whole concept of design, different discipline. We can incorporate all the design rules, and basically the whole design process can be done in just a matter of a few hours, including shop drawing, design calculations. So it's already happening. And also we see a lot of opportunity using AI to make construction site safer, because it's a really very difficult industry to work with, because there are a lot of people who kill and injure on site compared to other industries. And this is the test we did in our lab. This is our practical lab with our students. But we can use computer vision to pick up anything which might be unsafe. And the same techniques we can use to detect some building damages or building defects. So it's really very encouraging to see new technology can be used, and in this particular case, to look at productivity. So construction site like this, if we can use computer vision with AI, we can pick up all the work, how much work has been done every day. And we also did a project with level crossing removal authority. And we used AI in this case to test how the productivity can be quantified. And with this, we put 4 towers and cameras on top to quantify the construction. Yeah, some of you might have seen, drive past here and see some of the activities. So using this AI computer vision, we can see activity like this. We can see how much work has been done every day, and it can be reported immediately. Yeah. So, so just to summarize these challenges, so we are still facing a lot of challenges in our industry. I said the lack of awareness and understanding is the first one. Still, skill shortage is a big issue. We also see the current legal framework is not friendly towards a modular construction. So we also face the regulatory framework, cultural resistance, and the fragmentation of the industry. So the success factor, how we can build the whole industry, where we can see this ecosystem where people understand modular construction better, developers, designer, finance, construction company. It has to be the whole supply chain. We also need to improve the procurement and provide certainty. So about pipeline work, volume enough, so people can start investing in this technology. We also need to come up with a way to share the risks and the benefit, because the industry we have at the moment, we have sub after sub and all the thing. Everyone want to shift the risk to the next tier of contractor. We also need to invest in R&D because as a nation, we are at the bottom, but in construction, we are even worse, because the investment in R&D in construction is about 0.4% of the total revenue. And many companies with a very low margin, it's really 3-4%. They don't have incentive and capacity to invest in R&D. And the last one is upscaling, because if you don't have enough people to join industry, you need to come up with a way to upskill the existing workforce with the new technology. So quickly, the last one about the prefab industry. We actually founded the prefab industry here at the University of Melbourne. We actually have a target to grow the industry. At the moment, it's about 7 to 8% to about 30% over the next 10 years. We also want to demonstrate that we can build cheaper, 20% cost advantage. And the current house at the moment, it might take about 12 months to build. We think we can build a lot less. I think I talked to a lot of the companies in our sector. People say 12 weeks we can do it in 12 weeks. So with that, I just want to stop here with the last slide. We see a lot of work has been done. I show example of how industry and university working together. But we also need to bring our government can actually play a leading role, giving and more certainty in terms of the framework, the regulatory framework. So really can bring all together. And with the crisis we are having at the moment, I said, yeah, we don't want to waste any crisis. We have to change, but I think this is really the model to collaborate. And our CRC is one example, but we need a lot more than that. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and it's really my great pleasure to join the Academy, and I hope we can contribute more in the future. Thank you.
And thank you, Tuan. It was a fascinating presentation, and I do hope you conveyed the same message to the state government when you met with them a week or two ago. Sally was chairing, so she can admit to that. I'm just going to open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Professor. It was a fantastic presentation. I've actually got two. The first one is I've never been able to understand why there isn't clear cost savings with prefab, because you're in a factory with, I guess, automation possible and less customization, I think. Why is it not significantly cheaper immediately than building?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I've been asked the same question before, actually, because I've been working in this industry, and I understand to be able to do this new way modular construction, a lot of offsite activity, they need to invest in a factory. So a lot of the companies that the traditional builder, they don't have that overhead.
Right.
So the investment in factory, in equipment, that is their company want to actually get a bit of return, and that actually lead to, of course, cost increase. But if government can, or there's a demand, I think with the volume, the cost will come down. So we need more volume.
Got it.
We just had a meeting, just a conference this morning, the CRC annual conference. There's a company, they actually can produce about 4,000 units per year. At the moment, they only do 250. And with that, they said they can't compete. Yeah, so they need volume.
And the other one I wanted to ask was just around the utilisation of the clever examples of AI and tracking productivity. Is that something we're able to actually do though with the unionised environment we're in? Like, how do you go? Yeah,
that's
work
really
alongside the unions. Yeah.
All right. I think that's really important. Of course, these are barriers we faced in our project. Even this, it was a research project. But it was difficult to get the union to agree on that. But luckily, we look at, we show what can we do to, of course, there's no identity will be given. We only show activity.
Yes.
And we show them, we really protect all the privacy there. So we can see there's no face, really just movement of object. It can be human, it can be truck, but we only measure the activity and the work done. So with that, of course, they were okay. But I think in the future, I think we need to come up with a better way, because if we need to get all the permission every project, it's not going to be feasible.
More questions at the back here. Yeah. No?
Yes, yeah, I certainly do have one question for fantastic talk. Yeah, I can pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Because I also come from the same country as Dun. I came from Vietnam. So the question I want to ask, is there any other place around the world having a similar approach for your pre-prep housing or whatever? Also, is it the place actually doing that is in the Southeast Asia or something, cheaper labor to manufacturing? Would that be the solving the cost and then ship them back in here and using your whatever the invention or the patent cover your technology? That would be cheaper.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. I have the answer for that. And of course, if you look at the country, which is leading the world, Sweden. So basically, I spent a lot of time in Sweden. I visited factories and tried to understand why they are successful. Of course, we got a keynote speaker in a conference this morning, and the person was involved in the industry, and he showed us that in Sweden, 90% of the single homes was currently done using prefab. And in terms of multi-residential apartment, it's about 20%. So at the moment, we are about we started with about 3 to 4%. We're probably now about 7%, but we are still very low compared to countries like Sweden. We know in Japan, they've been doing that since after World War II, and the market share is about 20%. UK is about 12 to 15%. So we are not really leading. We actually be a lot behind but what we actually done well, the example I show you, the UV system actually been adopted in Singapore, in Hong Kong. So we can actually use the technology to go to our Asia Pacific region, and there are a lot of demand for that. But at the moment, of course, we actually have to change what we do it here first. It is a huge demand here.
I got the microphone. We've met ages ago to maybe more back in blast-proof days, but I work a lot in mass timber, so CLT, glulam stuff, and I will support if anyone lives in Moorabbin. On Boundary Road, the Goodman are doing a warehouse and stands out like Stonehenge over there. I'll actually, you were just talking about Sweden and the example over there. They do it great over there, and we've sort of talked to prefabricators right through the Baltic states like Lithuania, Latvia, and those places. In Poland, they're doing a lot of stuff there too. Austria, Germany tends to be the guys making the technology, and then they sort of do it there. They've always had that issue though with 3 or 4 months of the year, and they've got to get it built and fast, so they have that sort of pressure on them. That wasn't my question, but that is one of the massive. They prefabricate HVAC. They do all these other prefabricated things because it's boom, boom, boom. I was only going to have a bit of a question just with the CSR facade systems with mass timber. If you go sort of multi-level, getting the building envelope closed really quickly so you don't get the water ingress and you have sort of additional problems is really key. The mass timber is great, but you need everything else to line up with it. What's going on with those facades? Is CSR still doing that? Not, because I'm struggling to find people who do prefabricated facade systems for it, but yeah, I'll let you answer just if there's any movement or development on those facade systems to integrate with the core prefabricated elements.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I didn't mention about after the success in the INSGLO project. Actually, CSR see this is a good opportunity to be like the pioneer in the field, but they said there's not enough work. And they finally actually decided to close down the factory, which is really sad. But it's not only CSR. Company like Landlease spent about $20 million setting up a factory for CLT, and they also design work, and then also they decided to not to continue. So it's all coming back to we don't have certainty. People might say Australian market is too small. But actually, you have enough demand. And we talked to government this morning at the conference that there's 800,000 homes in Victoria. And I talked to people from New South Wales. They got similar amount need to be built. The government can say, that's with that number, even 10% or 20%, if it can be done in a new method, modern method construction, I think the whole industry can start invest. But they need the certainty. So at the moment, without that, it's going to be really hard. And I said to many companies that if they think doesn't change here, we wouldn't face the threat of company coming from other countries. They wouldn't come here, and maybe that wouldn't actually damage the local industry. That's happened to some of the other sectors. But I think we need to keep the capability in Australia. So we also, after the closure of the car industry here, a lot of companies actually change into construction, and some of them are successful. But I hope this going to start a new way of investment in new technology in construction.
One slight difference I'd have is, so we work a lot with European prefabricated guys. We work with Visual Mass Timber, Xlam and Next Timber. I see like the training wheels to be that having overseas suppliers to fill that gap. Europe right now, we've got like low forecasts on construction a bit. They've dropped their prices. That makes it more profitable here. But then as the economy comes back up, that can be the training wheel, like we get the culture change and so forth. And then more Australian suppliers can use them to pave the way sort of thing. So depending on logistics, of course. But yeah, there can be making a big capital investment for a single company is a bit too much when there's not that supply or the demand on them just yet.
Yes.
Stop
Just quickly, I can comment on the timber side, because our timber, even though we have a lot of forestry and timber, but the quality of timber is not as good as European timber. And we have a project, my research fellow Richard Nero work on project try to utilize the low quality timber and turn that into a valuable product. So it's another project, research project we are doing, because we have a lot of timber with low quality. How we can use that?
Thanks, Tuan. It's a great talk, and you've actually sort of answered it in the discussion about what sort of percentage would the government need to commit to make this viable. But I guess I'd just say that the shocking statistics that you tell us about housing, if that was publicly understood, governments, these political commitments to building houses become really, they're just putting money knowing it won't be spent. So I think there's, Business Academy needs to have a think about how do we sell a story like that? Because I always say, tell me a fact that will shock me. It's a lot easier to engage with people. So I think you do have a story. The other one's about precision with prefabricated, especially building high rise. I always think of that terrible story about Westgate Bridge, where prefabricated things came in, the engineer, the supplier, the engineer and the project manager all lost contact with each other. And so basically the prefab road construction, the box no longer fitted the holes, and while they were discussing them, the thing collapsed. So, this is not about necessarily bringing in a prefab. You don't have a skilled precision construction force here in Australia. I don't think you can, unless you're going to bring everybody in. And have like a floating factory offshore and they bring everything. So I don't think it's actually something that we want to, I think you can tell government that's not possible. But what is the sweet point when you say to the joint government, why 100,000? You've got to demand that, is it 50% of those homes go through this method?
Yes, thank you. Great. Can I actually, I really.
What is that sweet spot then? I mean, 20% sounds like survival rather than just say that we can build them.
Can I just, I think really good point, Margaret, because I showed the example of the little hero that was 15 years ago. And at that time, Singapore, they didn't have the modern construction industry. So they came here, I think I remember about 2010, the whole delegation from BCA, the Building Construction Authority. They said, you got a great example. You want to bring it back to Singapore and start to trust the industry. So at that time, first thing they did, they tried to mandate all the apartment project need to show 70%. They put 70% need to use, let's say, bathroom ports or maybe some sort of modular prefab. And after that, the industry grows quickly. So it happened in other countries. Of course, it's more difficult here. I think the percentage is probably work. I think we don't have to have that high percentage, but anything between 10-15% is good enough Because at the moment in New South Wales, they are looking at the program, Homes New South Wales. And we are working on a project with them. And of course, there's no percentage, but they said they want to try several projects to see how it works, cost-wise, time saving, and see if we can roll out. But I think 10% of 800,000 is a lot more than enough to have the success of the industry.
This will be the last question,
Yes,
just letting
Thank you, Kwan. Really enjoyed your talk. Clive Weeks is my name. I chaired the AG Coombs board for 10 years until I stepped down last December. I suppose you've heard of AG Coombs.
Yes. Actually,
and one of the leading prefab in building services. Couple of comments. I think the issue of getting prefab domestic dwellings is the Australian population wants individual homes. And it is almost impossible to ram down their throat modular construction. And if you do manage to do that, if you manage to get governments to do that, you finish up like we did 50, 60 years ago with Housing Commission, and we finish up in the same situation. They don't keep up to date, and the whole thing becomes so that there's you put 5 challenges up on the board.
Yeah.
I reckon I could add another 3 or 4 things. And I'd like to have a bit of a chat over dinner if you're staying.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the same, so I'm very good. And I just want to thank AG Kum for being part of the CRC, which is I think really good project. We will do this. Thank you.
So we will finish there, and I would welcome that those of you staying for dinner can continue the conversation with Kwan over dinner. But can you join me in thanking Kwan for a very, very. So the government got the message last week. But thank you. Well done, and yeah, dinner, etc. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kwan. It's great.